welcome everybody back to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde, the publisher of the Fretboard Journal print magazine. Hopefully you know our 58th issue is mailing to all subscribers right now. It's a gorgeous issue. I'm so proud of it. Some of my favorite interviews I've ever done are in this issue, including my interview with Mac DeMarco and Sophia Wolfson's interview with Meg from Hand Habits, and so many other stories. So if you haven't joined us yet, please go to fretboardjournal.com, click on the subscribe button. You can do that as well if you let your subscription lapse a while ago. We will get that issue off to you in the next week or so, and if you're an existing subscriber, you should be seeing it very, very soon. So with the Fretboard Journal and with this podcast, my favorite thing in the world is to interview some of my music and guitar heroes. My other favorite thing in the world is to turn you all on to artists that I don't think are on your radar just yet. Fretboard Journal is filled with discoveries. Our podcast is as well. And I am so happy to be telling you all about the guitarist Shane Parish on this week's podcast. Shane is a composer, an artist, an instructor, and a performer. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you may remember I interviewed Bill Orcutt about his Music for Four Guitars project. Shane is one of those guitars when Bill takes that project out on the road. And this record that we're going to be talking about is actually coming out on Bill's label. And the record that we are talking about is called Autechre Guitar. I don't expect all of you to know, but Autechre is this electronic music group that over the last 2 decades has put out these just utterly beautiful records. They are records that don't have anything remotely resembling guitar on them. They have beats, they have synths, they have glitchy sounds. This is music that is incredibly dense with layers and synths, and I wouldn't even know where to begin if I were to try to translate those compositions to guitar. Shane translated an entire album's worth of Autechre's compositions for acoustic instrumental guitar. He's not using any pedals. He's not using any effects. He is literally taking these glitchy, experimental electronic tracks, distilling them to their essence, and making profoundly beautiful acoustic instrumental music with them on his Taylor guitar. This is a project that is just a Mount Everest of guitar. And if you don't believe me, go to your favorite streaming platform right now and find Autechre's composition Cork, C-O-R-C. You can give it a listen. Hopefully you like it. At the very least, you'll get a sense of what we're talking about. And then you can go over to Bandcamp right now and listen to Shane's guitar version of Cork by Autechre. I've seen the notation of what Shane did to get these compositions into something playable by guitar. They are a work of art. We'll be sharing those in the magazine and on the page for this podcast as well. And I just wanted to hear all about Shane, his life, how he decided to take on this project, and so much more. This is what I love about the Fretboard Journal. We're able to tell the story either in the pages of our magazine or on this podcast or at our Fretboard Summit in August that you're not going to find anywhere else. And so I hope you enjoy this interview. Shane is just an awesome human being. I'm going to try to get him to our 2026 Fretboard Summit in Chicago. Hopefully we can hear him play, and maybe he'll shed some light on how he does these incredible arrangements. Shane's got another record out called Repertoire that's already on the streaming platforms. You can go hear his arrangements for guitar of all sorts of other styles of music on that record. Before we get to it, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. They are Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar here in Seattle, Washington. One of my favorite guitar stores around. They have a full service repair and restoration shop. They are just down the street from where I'm sitting in the Fremont neighborhood, and I am constantly amazed by the cool vintage gear that they get going through that store. We are also brought to you by our friends at Peghead Nation, where if you want to be a better fingerstyle player or jazz player or Americana player, they undoubtedly have an incredible curriculum for you, including many, many, many instructors who have been featured on this podcast or in the pages of the Fretboard Journal. Use the discount code FRETBOARD over there and you'll get your first month free. We are also brought to you by Stringjoy Strings based out of Nashville, where if you use the discount code FRETBOARD, You can get 10% off your first order. They do guitar, acoustic and electric, mandolin, and banjo strings now. They can do custom sets, and any wild idea you may have, they may be able to do. So reach out to them. Tell them the Fretboard Journal sent you. And as I hinted at, our Fretboard Summit taking place August 20th to 22nd in Chicago at the Old Town School of Folk Music. This is my version of the Ultimate Guitar Weekend. I curate it. I work with my colleagues over in Chicago, and we just come up with this incredible 3-day festival of great music, great interviews, panel discussions, and of course, we have probably, arguably, the greatest handmade instrument show around in the country right now, with around 80 luthiers, electric and acoustic, and some pedal and amp companies, as well as some of the bigger brands like Collings and Martin, all on display, sharing with you not only their latest creations, but some prototypes that you've never seen anywhere else. It is like being in Disneyland if you are a guitar fanatic or love this podcast. And all you got to do to register is go to fretboardsummit.org and take it from there. And you can stay anywhere in the greater Chicago area that you want. You can stay with friends. You can couch surf, get an Airbnb or a hotel. It's really up to you and your budget. We want to make this flexible for everybody, whether you're a local or you're like me, traveling thousands of miles to attend. Fretboardsummit.org. And now, without further ado, I am going to interview Shane Parish for you all. The album, again, is called Autechre Guitar. It comes out late February 2026. I'll include a link to his Bandcamp page. Check this thing out. I hope you are all as amazed by what you're about to hear as I am. I've listened to the whole album. It is truly great. I can't recommend it enough. Here's my interview. Well, Shane, let's just get into it. I know it's late over there. Let's hear the whole story. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
You just told me you grew up in Florida. Where were you? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay. An unlikely guitar town. When did guitar enter your life?
Guitar entered my life when I was 14 years old. Yeah. And I just that was it. It just took over my whole life. Yeah.
And I don't know how old you are. I think I'm probably a little older than you, but you've been getting some acclaim for some of these incredible acoustic guitar covers you're doing of impossibly complex electronic music. Were you an Autechre fan or an Aphex Twin fan back then, or did that come later?
I think that came later because that would probably be more post around like two early 2000s, like early 20-aughts. I think I became more familiar with that music. But I was a big, like Radiohead fan in the 90s when OK Computer came out, and I was ready for like when Kid A came out, and you start to realize the influence that they were taking from electronic music, and that could have been maybe a gateway. Now that we're thinking about it, and I'm realizing this in real time, that was sort of like, oh, like you listen to some Autechre music and you listen to Idiotech and you realize there's a direct path to, yeah. And so. Yeah.
Were you in bands?
When I was a teenager in South Florida? Yeah. So, I basically got a guitar when I was 14 and immediately just started forming bands. And I started working with a singer friend, and we started playing open mic nights and all over South Florida, like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area. And we rented a warehouse. I dropped out of high school. I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And my family was, you're crazy, basically. But
you were a young Florida man.
I was a young Florida man.
Yeah. Renting a warehouse.
Yeah.
That was going to be, and how long did you make that work?
Well, those kind of like psychedelic teenage years, like time periods feel much longer than they probably actually were. So I'm going to say that was at least 6 months though in that warehouse in Dania Beach, Florida. But in music time and teenage years, that felt like a lifetime. Yeah.
Did guitar come naturally to you?
I was told that by other people that it seemed natural in my hands, but I didn't really have consistent lessons or good, like anything like that. I was self-taught. I just started writing songs, learning chords from friends and moving things around and composing songs to play with the singer that I was doing gigs with. We wrote like a couple albums worth of material together, and then like I was experimenting. I knew I wanted to. I had this book, maybe you are familiar with, called the Guitar Handbook. That was like, that introduced me to things like Frank Zappa and John McLaughlin and Django Reinhardt. It had all this like these Robert Fripp, all these like introductory sort of like guitar players you should know, and then I would explore those. I go and buy like CDs of that stuff, and I became really influenced by jazz and like prog and whatnot at a certain point in those years. Yeah.
Was that how you kind of got exposed to like acoustic instrumental music?
Gosh. How did I get exposed to? I mean, I was also like a big, Pink Floyd fan, right? So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of this sort of like pastoral kind of thing going on. And also, if you think about like maybe like early Genesis too, these kind of like sequences of just really like ornate, like beautiful, like finger picking passages. And I'm trying to think of when I like got into like more like instrumental guitar music, because I really like country blues, and I really started, I don't know, there's like Mississippi John Hurt was a big gateway for me in terms of like serious like self-study in terms of playing music where there's like an independent bass line and then there's a melody on top. And I really kind of like, got the Stefan Grossman book and, kind of worked my way through a lot of that stuff on my own. And it would have been nice to have some help. I sometimes think when I work with students now teaching that stuff, I can kind of, but in a way, having had having a lot of difficulty, I think makes it easier for me to realize like why it's beneficial to go a certain route in terms of technique, optimizing technique, if I'm making sense, but I really kind of, that was for me like how I got into like playing fingerstyle guitar, I think, in kind of a serious way. Yeah.
And then did you go straight from Florida to Asheville?
Yeah, I was living in Tallahassee, Florida for like 3 years. I was in Fort Lauderdale. And then when I was 18, I was like, I'm out of here. Moved to Tallahassee to like follow a girlfriend who was going to school at Florida State University. Immediately started playing music there with people. I had like a large free jazz ensemble that had like a weekly gig for a period there, doing like playing like, John Coltrane tunes, and like we play like Pharoah Sanders, Black Unity, like 25-minute versions of these songs. And like, I couldn't really play though, but there were some players in the group that could. I just didn't, in retrospect, I had no clue what was happening, but I was improvising and going for it. And I would learn the head of the tune and like, and then be able to like kind of try and feel my way around in there. And then, and I had like this prog quartet also called Human Zoo, and I lived in Tallahassee, which was violin, Chapman stick, and drums. And we wrote these kind of like technical,
So you were on the Chapman stick?
No. This other guy named Buck Colson was on the Chapman stick.
Okay.
And he was like also a bass player. And he was sort of the first musician that I worked with, that I played with, who was like a shredder, like he was like he could like play really fast, like Jocko-esque kind of stuff on the bass. And I was like, holy cow, how do you, like, I don't know how you do that. And he was nice enough to play with me, and we, formed bands together. And I remember just being just astonishing technique, really, stuff I still like can't do, Sure. And so that was interesting. And so I was there for a few years, and then I moved to Asheville, North Carolina in 2001, where I lived for 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Asheville, I think of as being this like fertile ground for acoustic guitar music.
Sure.
And all forms of old time and bluegrass music, really.
Right.
Did that transform your playing, living there?
I think so. I think, yeah. I think that hearing that music and being around this more of an Americana kind of scene probably was pretty informative. And that's kind of where I had I continued in my like prog kind of directions, like with this band I formed called Autechre, which is this like math rock group that is really still going. We played like a festival in Lisbon just this year, but it's it's not my main focus now, but it's managed to like put out 9 albums, and so it has like some cult following and longevity to it. And like, but so I was doing that, and I joined like a hardcore punk band when I moved there also. And then, kind of, but I also started teaching a lot and taking gigs, taking restaurant gigs, when I moved to Asheville, I realized I really wanted to work as a musician because I was working as like a cook in restaurants. I was working like in the kitchen, and I wanted to work in the front of the house. I wanted to be on the being ignored on the bandstand instead of cooking in the back. So, but I wanted to play music like John Coltrane songs and things like that. And so I got really serious right when I moved to Asheville. I was like, oh, I better get on it. Like I was already 23 at that point. I was like, I'm gonna learn to read music for real and get it together so that I can be like a skilled musician, or like a craftsman of sorts, like be employable. And that's how I got into like classical guitar, because like a flautist hired me to do like duets. I'd never done classical guitar, and I had to learn all this like Giuliani stuff just for like a gig. and be around there's a lot of gypsy swing stuff going on around there. And then playing the acoustic guitar at home alone a lot, practicing. And then and so a shift happened for me in 2015 or around maybe 2014, 15. Anyway, where I started recording like these like folk songs, basically, because I was doing a lot of free improv stuff too, just like really like avant-garde music, and like and then I got into I got this book by Happy Traum, like country picking guitar, and I like loosely interpreted like 18 of the songs in this book, like by just like kind of reading the chart and just feeling my way around in it. And I had worked with John Zorn, the composer and saxophonist, and with my band the Luchatistas, and I sent him these recordings, and he said, "Oh, this is great. Let's do a record." And so then I ended up doing this album for his label called Undertaker Please Drive Slow, which was like my interpretations on like folk and blues music. And that was sort of like launched my solo acoustic like career beyond being like a gigging musician in Nashville.
Yeah, that's an awesome record. Are you reading notation? Are you going off tab? Like, how do you go from I'm going to start playing a Coltrane song, for example, or some to I'm going to make it my own?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely like reading charts, and when I was so I'm reading the charts, and then eventually, like, I think like through being a dabbler in like classical guitar and like country blues guitar, but not really having like the commitment to be like a full-blown like master trad like player in any of those styles, over like a few decades, I felt like there was this like synthesis that happened around the time of that Undertaker record, where it was like, oh, I'm actually really comfortable now in this space I've created by having these various interests, where I felt like I found like a voice of my own that I was comfortable in. Whereas as opposed to like I'm trying out a style, or I'm like, or I'm doing genre hopping, right? I'm not really like, you know what I mean? Because you could sound like you're like kind of like jumping from one vibe to another. And I think it sort of like merged around that time. And then, I just doing like my own arrangements was kind of like became more about like my love for the music that I'm arranging, and my love for the guitar and what it can do with open strings and alternate tunings, but the tunings are to serve the song. I'm tuning to like the tonality of the tune, or the song's in C minor, then like tune the guitar to a C minor chord and see what I can do with that. And this is a tough question because it's like so much trial and error over so many years and going down like so many kind of like blind alleys for like a really long time and sometimes like hitting a wall and failing and being like, this just doesn't work, to where and so that you can get to where you have something that you can actually play, because I would like arrange things that were just not possible for me to play. Maybe like some virtuoso could play, but yeah.
Well, give me some examples, because you just made a record of songs that I think most of us would have thought were impossible to arrange on guitar in a coherent manner that like paid tribute. What were some of your experiments that just you're like, as of right now, there is no way I can make this work on guitar?
I spent like a really long time trying to make an arrangement of like Ecstasy of Gold by the composer of all the spaghetti western movies. What's his
Ennio
name?
Morricone.
Thank you. Just edit out my brain fart there. Yeah. So Ennio Morricone's Ecstasy of Gold. Now people have played this before, and you can watch YouTube videos of people playing it. It would make sense to put the arpeggiation like on the higher strings, and then like there's a playable version of it. But I thought, I'm gonna like drop this thing down and put the arpeggiation in the bass. And I just and that's like there's a lot of movements to that song to get the feel right, and like it was just like I'll have the arrangement written out, and then it's just like the thing is like getting it to tempo, getting it like where it's all like in your hands. And I remember like spending like months on that, and it's just like never. I mean, I should go back to it. I do sometimes feel like I will improve over like years sometimes and look at something like, I can kind of do that now. But I just spent so long with that. And maybe like in a more general sense, like the thing is like when you're arranging for guitar, it's like, like the Segovia thing, right? Where it's like the guitar is the orchestra in miniature, right? You have to subtract, and you have to like kind of figure out what's essential about the music. And I think going down these roads where it's like trying to like get the inner voices in and like get you have the bass and the melody, trying to make it like all under your fingers. It's too hard to play, it's like sometimes, and you don't need it all, and no one's going to miss it. And I think through the process of like just trying and failing, or just trial and error, like I think when I did the Autechre, it took me 3 months to do the Autechre record in earnest. Like, I mean, but because once it kind of clicked, like how it was going to happen, it was a lot of work in that 3 months. Because I had a deadline. Bill was like, can we put it out in December? And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Let me get to, but like, I think having had those experiences of realizing what's going to work, I'm quicker at realizing what's just not going to work, and you're not going to miss certain things, and so I'm not going to waste my time playing something that's too hard to play when it's just like take out one freaking note and the whole thing is like so much easier,
Yeah. I mean, between everybody hopefully will know after with this conversation, the Autechre record, you did the Aphex Twin Avril. Was there a precursor to all this stuff where you were playing with any other electronica music like this?
I mean, I also did that Kraftwerk tune on the repertoire record, and trying to think. When I like look back on, I mean, earlier in the year I was looking at some like Richie Houghton, like just like hard techno stuff too, like, and like kind of transcribing it and being like, because I like this like idea of, I like counterpoint, and I like repetition, and I like when things kind of move around, and so I thought, okay, well, I should start like transcribing techno and house music for guitar, because it's so elemental. It's like there's just like a few parts, and then you're bringing the parts in and out, and you can kind of start to play with them because they're sequences, and the Autechre stuff is too, but it's like way more clandestine in terms of like, I remember like when you're decoding it, when I realized where the loops were in the Autechre, I was like, oh, that's where it starts over, because it's so syncopated and like the phrases are so long a lot of times. But so
was the Autechre music that was close to your heart, or was this almost like a dare? Bill, you mentioned, is Bill Orcutt, who we've had on the podcast and has an incredible album for 4 guitars that everybody should go check out. That you're one of the 4 guitars.
Yeah, I transcribed his record. was yeah. Also, I love the Autechre music. I'm like a big fan of them, and my wife is also a really huge fan of them. And she was very encouraging for a while. She's like, because we were like, I was kind of thinking post my follow up to repertoire might have been more of like an electronic music collection. And then it was like, no, and so she was very encouraging. I was like, well, I think we focus on Autechre music for, specifically, I think, and so in a way, and I dedicate the record to her in the liner notes on it. I'm like, I mean, it's like, it's like, and she introduced me to that music, 23 years ago, so, yeah, so the music like is a I'm deeply connected to the music, and then, and it just became like, I guess Bill called it my Everest or something.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
kind
yeah.
of.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to hear how this unfolded. You said 3 months.
Yeah.
I imagine these were compositions that were close to your heart, or maybe you just felt would translate best to guitar.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that. But then after you tell me how all that went down, I want to hear like trying to get into the mind of these two kind of elusive musicians behind this band. Like, what did you learn from that as a musician yourself?
I mean, so much. I
just threw like 8 questions at you.
I know you did. Now, what was the first one though?
The first one was just sort of like, where did you begin and how did you pick these compositions for guitar?
Right. Okay. So when I say like it took me 3 months, I mean, that's not entirely true. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I should say that like I transcribed the song "Slip" like 22 years ago, the main melody of it, which and I actually performed it like a couple times with this person I was friends with at the time, who was playing a laptop, just like at a record store gig or like the local bar or whatever. But I mean, just the main melody of it. And then I had really no sense for like what was actually going on there until I started working on this. I was like, oh, that's what's going on there, in terms of how it like doesn't really line up with the beat and kind of moves around. So that was like the seed for it. So I did do that. And so that kind of answers your question earlier about, did I do this earlier? And I realized, yes, I did. I did transcribe that song a long time ago, and I really liked that melody. And I remember, and I had this feeling doing more of the material for this record, which was that, does this thing ever repeat? Because it's very like, it's syncopated, it's a long phrase, and then it's like kind of like, there's like some rhythmic tension against what else is going on, to where you're like, it's hard to figure out where is one, And I remember having that experience, like, and then I realized, oh, this is actually pretty finite. I can like kind of hold this in my hands. But so I did that, and then earlier in the year, this year, maybe even a little bit late 2024, I transcribed part of their song called "Bike," and I was playing, and I even played that with a drummer friend of mine, Michael DiRomeno, on a couple of gigs, and so I had those two started when I started the project, but they were very unfinished. And I've kind of felt like they were like holding me back because there was no process for like I was like, I'm going to come back to these at the end of doing the rest of the record. I'm going to circle back to those two songs because I couldn't like put the puzzle together. Like, how is this going to feel like complete? And I can just, like, okay, I'm done, And so then I moved on to this song called Yuto. Which is like the third song on the record, and that one I just went from beginning to end. I also want to say, when I was working on Bike, because remember, Slip I did like 20 some years ago, and then Bike I started this year, and I remember like I'll slow these things down, like you can slow stuff down and like on YouTube, and so I'm slowing it down. When you slow down to like synthesized music, it doesn't really lose fidelity the way like I think some recordings do. And so you start to just hear so much. And I was trying to be so literal but this kind of like speaks to what I was saying earlier about like complexity. I was like, okay, what can you sing when you hear this? What do you sing when you hear this? What's the theme here? And kind of, and like, let's not like, you can't get all of this detail onto one guitar. It's just not going to happen. So I kind of had that realization while working on Bike. And when I moved to Yuto, where that was the first one I finished, I did it. I started at the beginning and I went through to the end. and I was done, and I thought, oh wow, I finished one. That's what it looks like to like have, all the sections, like like how is it going to develop? How can I possibly deal with the phase shifting? Like there's things I just physically like could not do, but I could get like what's all the melodic material there? How can I construct it where the counterpoint is, like, you have things going on at the same time, and it works. And that was the first one I finished, and I felt like that was like, this was back in August, because my plan of attack was like, okay, I have this deadline, and Bill was like, we're gonna need this thing, like, and I kept pushing back. I'm like, what's the absolute latest I can give it to you? Because he's like, so he, and I don't think like.
Was this an arbitrary date, or was this around like a festival or album release? Like,
so he's very savvy, and he likes to like and make announcements on like Bandcamp Friday, because Bandcamp Friday is when they like waive all their fees, So he has like a release schedule that kind of lines up with that.
Okay.
And so he's like, I need something for this December 5th Bandcamp Friday. Will you be done with the Autechre record by then? And we had been discussing this for a while. We were on tour in France back in like March talking about this, and he's like, you could do multi-track guitars, because he'd only heard the slip like thing, and so he was like, oh, you can multi-track, it's cool, whatever you want, it'd be really, really pretty, just make it beautiful. And I was like, no, it's like solo acoustic guitar performances, you know what I mean? I want this to be something I can play solo live. I want to be able, and so he was all on board and fully behind me on it. And at a certain point, when we were bouncing, he just said, make the record you want, which is, so it's like a double LP, and it's like, he's like, and so, he gave me that kind of carte blanche. And so I was busy with like a music camp, and I like had a tour with my band Luchatistas. I also played a solo show at this jazz festival in Lisbon, and I knew when I got back, it was this record is going to be my whole life. And so I saw the 3 months as like, okay, I finished transcribing by the end of September, starting like early August. If I finish transcribing by like everything, and then I'm fully practiced like through October, and I record at the beginning of November. And that was like my trajectory for the project. And that's what happened. But like, and I think, again, over the years of doing this, I've grown to trust my like management of like a longer trajectory. Like I used to be like freaking out about stuff where, there's no way I'm going to make this deadline. But I kind of was like, I don't know, this was like maybe the most calculated in terms of like, just like a quantitative, like, okay, this, and believe me, man, I was like, I have an 11-year-old daughter, I would be like driving her to after school activities, and I'm in the backseat of the car with the guitar and my iPad, like transcribing, like, I mean, I was in the morning, and I was like up late at night, and I was like burning it at like at all ends, to like kind of like get the transcription done. It took it out of me for sure. The song Cork on the record is by far, it took me 2 weeks alone. That was like, but that was for me, that's kind of like in terms of an achievement of transcription, that's like my personal, like, I mean, I love the whole record, and like but that was like how the density of it was just and it's also like the most one-to-one. If you listen to it, it's like the same exact length and tempo as like the record. Okay. And like but so that was like my plan of attack. And then and once I finished Yuto, I was like, oh, okay, that's what it feels like. That's what this is like going to work. And then I just went on to the next one, and I knocked them out. And then I circled back and realized that I had like the phrasing wrong on Bike and Slip, you know what I mean? Like, and then Slip, I transcribed it and got all the rest of the parts in there. And then that one's interesting because I didn't like how it was coming off on guitar. It's almost like too much movement. So I almost made this like kind of folk rendition of that one. That was one of the ones with like, I took a bit more license, but all the themes are there, but it's not as like Cork I mentioned is like, no, that's like everything as is, Yeah. So
wild. This is your Mount Everest. I mean, one guitar on the whole thing?
Yeah.
What was it?
My guitar, it's a Taylor 218 EG. Is that a guitar?
That is a guitar.
That's
Yeah.
my guitar. I said, that's my guitar. I've had for like 15 years, more than that. Yeah. Yeah. And I
I-
record at home. I was going to go in the studio. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just gonna. I mean, I have so many questions because this project is like so hard to fully grasp. Standard tuning, a bunch of different tunings. Like, what did you do?
Yeah, different tunings, but there's some in standard tunings. I kept like largely with the tonality of the record. Sometimes like the guitar, like John Hurt only played in the caged keys, right? Like you got like those are the guitar keys, right? Like so, like from what, like midnight to what is that, 4 o'clock on the circle, right? Like it's like those are the keys, and so sometimes the song, like I don't want to play a song in E flat, you know what I mean? Like I might bump it, or I'll tune it down half a step, like the song in F, I capoed it at 1, to kind of like try to keep the tonality of it. So, but like Uto, for example, is like a drop B on the 6th string and a drop F sharp on the
Just to make it harder.
well, no, because it's like because okay, but here's the thing. This I think is that like what's going on in the bass, and the thing about this music is like, well, it's electronic music, so like the kick is like a really important thing, the kick pattern. And so a lot of times what I would do is like on that song and some of the other ones, and I can look at my notes if I need to really like cheat here, but like the kick pattern became my bass line, which is like a big thing for me, is that like I love quarter note bass lines, but I'm also like kind of like I don't want to play quarter note bass line anymore. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's so much of guitar music is like the quarter note bass line, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's the best. My favorite time signature is 1, but these these syncopated kick patterns, like are like if that's the kick pattern, then that would be the bass line. And the bass line, and they're pitched, the kick is pitched on these recordings. You can kind of hear, it's like, it would be weird if like if it was in a different key or something. So so that became like my bass line. So in that song, for example, the bass line, that's the keys. The song's in like B minor, so it's like, okay, B and F sharp in the bass. It was so low that I asked the mastering engineer to notch out some of the low frequency, because I felt like it was swallowing the freaking like the mix, like that's the only one. I was like, that was my only note on the entire master. James Plotkin did an amazing job, but I was like, hey, that song, the bass is just like so strong, and so he just notched it a little. Yeah,
It was like being at a warehouse rave where the bass is just taking over.
Yeah. You can hear all the. I really like. I want like Glenn Gouldian like articulation, like just this kind of like just like plinky kind of like, I want to hear the articulation. So it was kind of driving me crazy, but that's just because it was so low. Yeah, so it's just different. The tuning, a lot of them ended up working in standard though, or drop D. There's a few of them in drop D. Yeah, so it just depends on what's going on harmonically, is how I kind of deal with tunings. Or I like shoehorn the song into another key, and then like make the tuning, like have to transpose the whole song. Yeah.
You mentioned the one tune taking forever. Were there others where you're like, I'm just not even going to do this one? Like
that didn't make the record?
Yeah, didn't make the record.
Yeah, there was a song called Pure, PIR, that I was trying to get on the record, and I was like, dude, like, what the hell I can't. I might come back to it. Like I do have a list going for like maybe another volume, like eventually. But like but I was like, I just cannot hear, because there's, first of all, like I'm looking for melodic content. You asked how I like chose the tunes earlier. It's like I went for, first of all, I went for like emotional content. I like music that has emotional content and that speaks to me in like an emotional way. And so I'm very like into romantic music like that. And so that guided my choices. And then there were songs I listened to and it was like, I got started on and I was like, you know what, there's just not enough here for guitar music. And even in the songs on the record, there are songs that I like kind of trimmed like 3 minutes off the intro because it just was kind of boring on guitar. It was cool in the music and I could play it, but it was not like, it didn't like sound like it wasn't engaging on a soul, just the guitar playing like one note for like two. I mean, some of it's that's cool, but it was just I had to made some choices like to reduce things, like that. Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit of the process. You'd take the music, you'd slow it down.
Yeah.
Walk me through a little bit more, maybe even picking out a song, like what you latched on to. Like, did you kind of have a process for each of these that sort of worked well enough with Autechre's, material that you kind of just mimicked it every time? In terms of the order of what you were trying to transcribe?
Yeah. I'm looking for the theme and I'm looking for the bass line. I'm kind of looking for two parts, because that's like, you can get a third part on the guitar, but like, because a lot of their music, I probably should pull up charts here just so I'm like. Speaking.
Yeah. And Bill sent or attached one of your charts and they're like a work of art. Like, are you going to share these with your students or with the world at any point, or not really?
Yeah, I think I would clean them up and maybe like offer them, because I sold like a edition of 100 books of tab for the repertoire record that I did for Bill's label, and I think people have been asking. There's been a few people asking about charts for this stuff, so. So I definitely want to offer tabs, but like thank you for saying they're a work of art. They're also just like for me. So they look like just like scribblings of like a mad person, which I've been told, that is a thing. But a lot of there's songs where it's like, there's like a theme and then there's another theme. What's a good example of this? I want to give you a solid example of like a really obvious one. Okay. A really obvious one would be like Eggshell. Okay. Which is actually one of the singles that's like one of the first singles that we released. Do you want me to play guitar right now, or is that too like?
Sure. I mean, if you got original sound on, yeah, it'll work.
All right. So there's this, I guess it's my understanding, I might be getting this wrong, is like, sonata form, right? Don't you have like, it's like theme or like a thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, like this kind of like dialectical thing where you have like, and so they'll introduce something and then they'll introduce something else. And then it's like, they're all combined at the end, and I think this is a feature of their earlier music. Look, I'm a guitar player. I know that this band has like a deep fandom that's very like knows a lot about like their equipment and about the later catalog. And there's even like people like, why'd you do all the early stuff, and it's like, they're working like at the limits of like the technology, and then the technology changed, and I can't really speak to that stuff knowledgeably, but that's my understanding of it. So they're like making the most of what they have at the time. So this song starts out and it's got this like, like kind of theme, and that's kind of like the introduction to it. They kind of play around with that. And so that's that opening theme. Then they do that for a minute and then they introduce this other theme. It's like, second theme. Sorry, I'm not super warmed up on it at the moment, but that's basically the deal there. And then they kind of drop a groove under that theme, and then it's like, and then they'll kind of groove on that. Let's see. Let's see if I can do it. Kind of sloppy. I'm March 30th to 20th. I'll premiere live.
I was going to say, are you going to try to play all these in one set?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go on tour and do this stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
It's happening.
More Mount Everest action.
Yeah. It's really fun to practice and play. So we got those two themes then. Like the opening theme, right? And then we got the kind of like, and by the end of the song, you go through some different moments, and then they combine the two with like the kick pattern and the bass line. And here's, we'll see if I can pull it off at all. Oh my gosh. Okay. Why am I doing this? No, let me go slow. Here we go. Ready? And if you can hear that, those are both in there, like, and then I also kind of have the other melody. I might have dropped a note here and there just for playability, but like, so I don't know if that makes sense. Is that audible?
I mean, it's incredible. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So how can I get two melodies at the same time plus the kick pattern and the bass? That's the process on that song in terms of like the climax, because that was so typical. That's like a common thing with them. Like the climax is like the merging of all the elements with maybe some like additional kind of sound. So in terms of like learning like formal considerations of like composition, like the great compositions, they're really like, just like they pull on your heartstrings and they like take you there, and they just like denouement at the end where the themes, they all merging, and then there's all this other like kind of sound design that I can't do, but so it's kind of reduced to like these melodic aspects of their playing, which arguably, and some people are maybe saying this, is like this was like what resonated for like a few generations of listeners, like why, like and so yeah, so kind of that's sort of a simpler example, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess, I kind of asked you this earlier, but like scrutinizing this at the level that you did, you probably become very attuned to like the duo's party tricks and like their little quirks of how they evoke so well.
Yeah.
Were there any examples of that kind of stuff where you're like, oh, they're doing that again?
I mean, I think, well, if we want to get into like sort of like a very fine point would be like kind of rhythmic tricks that they do, which I think like this working on this has certainly sharpened my like sensibility for like syncopation on the 16th note, like, because we can play on the ands or whatever, but they're really like, we'll have like these multiple melodies that are syncopated like on the E's and the U's, man, what I'm saying? And so it's like I was teaching something. I have a student, I think yesterday, actually, we were working on this Grant Green transcription, and I was like, actually, I think that's on the 16th note at the end of the beat, like the second note. And I was like, honestly, like before working on this Autechre stuff, I might have like kind of been thinking about that a little harder, but I'm like, but they do it so often that I got really used to hearing, like that kind of syncopation. I could maybe come up with another example. Would be fun. Like Cork is all over the place with that stuff. Like, and it's another one where it's like, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, I'm in the wrong tune now. Sorry. So yeah, like. So that was one pass of like a 16 bar phrase, which is actually combining like two phrases, because that's the second movement. So the chord happens in like 4 movements. There's an A, a B, and a C, and a D section. Is this like too nerdy for the podcast? Do you
No,
like
keep this. I think people are going to eat this up. Yeah.
Okay, so like, because chord starts out with this kind of like, I'll try and count actually, because the thing is, there's so much space, it's hard to count this. That space is hard, you know, like. 1, 2, 3, 4. So like, you know, that's like their A section. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, right out of the gate, you're like 1, 2, 3, and 2, and 3, and you know, and it's like that's like okay, that's the first phrase maybe in the bass, and so then actually the thing I played a minute ago was into the second section, because then they have this melody comes in, it's like. Right, and so but you can hear this. Here it is. Where we started with this, like, right. Here it is, right? Like, right. There's a bit. So putting that melody over this like really syncopated, super slow, long form 16 bar bass figure. This is one of the ones where I was decoding it and I realized, oh, there's the repeat finally. Oh, and then I realized it was such a puzzle, you know, and as I got through it more and more, and this one, it took me a long time because then like later on in the song, you get to a third element when the C section of the song happens. And it's just like, there's, you know. Little rough around the edges, but it'll be there, you know, like for a live performance. Yeah, so then like they have a third element in that C section, and then I should mention, and then there's a D actually, and then the D is another element, and so it became this like call and response thing because you have these like different synth tones between the parts, and I started to realize, oh, this is like a call and this is the response, and like. And I guess back to my original point when we got on this, you were talking about little things that they do, right? Like if I look at okay, here's like the second measure of the D section, like just the melody goes like a, or how about here's the whole measure, like, I can actually play it like. Oh yeah. One more time. There it is. Yeah. Just that type of syncopation all the time. On the 16th, that was 1 E, and then like you're on the next measure. It's just very like, and they do that a lot where it's like just off the 16th note. And when I first got into it, I was like, oh man, this is like frying my brain to do it. But then you start to like hear it enough, and it becomes this like, I think it'll be totally intuitive and like for once I start performing it, but it's, you know, there's still like this kind of like mental aspect for me where I'm like, yeah.
Wow. And then the transcriptions is this tab or what are you doing?
Um, I use like doing hybrid tab because I mean I could do it in standard notation. I wrote Yolkwin in standard notation, but that's just like a single theme. That was probably like one more the simpler tunes on the record. Um, I, I do it just to get right to the arrangement. You know, like tablature for me is like suggested fingering whenever I look at it. And I always look at like people's suggested fingering if I'm learning something or if I'm like, um, and so, but I kind of, so for me, like, I mean, I will trial and error multiple voicings of something. Like, so I might have gone through like half a dozen fingerings on something before I'm like, oh, that's the one. And the decision about that is, you know, like what's the most beautiful fingering? You know, what's the one that's going to sound the most beautiful? But then there's obviously like technical considerations of like how is this too hard to play? You know, something really beautiful might be just too hard, and so I have to kind of reduce that. But the beautiful fingering is like, and for me that's like going to be the most resonant one. You know, how much resonance can I get out of the instrument? Can I get the open string in there? Can I, you know, if I just want to like, I want it to glow, you know, I want it to like shimmer. And so, yeah, so the tabs gives me a direct path to the arrangement that I'm going to live with after I've gone through that. So it's just like a streamlined process for myself, you know, because I know I could like write standard notation and then like write fingerings and strings in, but I think I just love like hybrid tab. Get all the rhythm, make sure the rhythm's there and the rhythm's accurate, you know. And that's and leading up to this project, I mean, I say, yeah, it took me 3 months to do this. It took me 30 years to do this stuff because, you know, like I've transcribed like vocalists and stuff, you know, and vocalists are like pushing and pulling the beat. They're like, I've done a lot of ballads like by like you know, John Jacob Niles or, you know, Shirley Collins or like I like a lot like um, just like different, you know, doing the folk music stuff, you know, working from the vocal part, not from the instrumentation part. And then so that I think kind of got me to where I was a little more comfortable getting things down accurately that are like feel like they're in the cracks a little bit, you know, that they like kind of try to get vocal phrasing, you know, is really, you know, and try to get,
you were doing that while you were playing, which I think, you know, it's not music with vocals, the originals, but I could totally see how your mind was working.
Yeah. Yeah, so the tabs just it's for me, it's just like more of a finished product, like in terms of like I'm married to this, and then of course invariably I like change it. Like I did the record, and then now I'm like learning it more like for performance, and I'm like, okay, actually this is a better fingering than what I had before. You know, I'm starting to like kind of like modify the arrangements a little bit. Yeah.
You've played a ton of settings in a ton of different bands and incarnations. How challenging, intimidating, difficult is it going to be for you to do this solo, you know, the full Autechre album?
I'm just going to be ready, you know, like it's by the time I do it, it better be easy, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like I don't like, I'm not going to go into it. Like my target premiere is like 3 months from now. And I, intend to just kind of focus exclusively on that. I mean, I have to like get some other things to go together, but I mean, it's like in my routine to the point where it's like, and honestly, since we've announced this, I don't know if you know this or not, because we've never, but like this, like people like are kind of interested in this way that I've never experienced exactly. So people, there's like opportunities to play, I think are starting to like turn up in my email and stuff. And so I'll be doing it. And it's kind of like, I mean, maybe my favorite stuff I've done, you know, like honestly, because it's just like it scratches every itch that I like about music, you know, about playing guitar specifically in terms of it's like beautiful. The harmony is really nice. A lot of suspended chords, very minor, kind of vibes, and like, and then just like interesting counterpoint, and then just technically, I mean, it's challenging, but it's also like I think comes across as just like a vibe. It doesn't come across as like I think uneasy listening in any kind of way. It's just
Yeah. You showcased, I mean, the beauty of the music, and I think it's, for better or worse, the nature of guitar music. There's going to be a whole bunch of people learning about Autechre, first hearing you play it, and then going and finding the record after, just because they found you through some guitar chat or something.
yeah. And it's kind of funny. My mother-in-law over Thanksgiving, she's got good taste, but she was like, Shane, have you finished that? She has like a Southern accent. She's like from Georgia. She's like, you're doing that electronic music record, right? And I was like, yeah, I finished it. Yeah. And she's like, oh, that's good. And she's like, how'd it come out? I was like, oh, it's really beautiful. And she's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought it was going to be beautiful. I was like, well, geez, thanks a lot. It's like, what are you talking about? But I think she just like didn't like thought it was just going to be some like super avant-garde thing or whatever.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, as you get accolades, have Autechre surfaced? Do they know this record exists?
They must know at this point. I haven't really been in touch with them, but I've been in touch with like people I am very surprised to be in touch with. Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. I know that like I understand that like Bleep carries the record in England, and that's a subsidiary of Warp Records, which is their record label. And they wrote their own blurb, which was like super nice. And they were like, oh, someone has like basically done a great job of, like it was very like they were like, one man has stepped forth.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, okay, cool.
The evil Knievel of guitar arrangements. Yes.
Yeah. So I imagine it must have like surfaced. And then Philip Sherburne wrote the liner notes, and he's written about them quite extensively. And so one can assume that we would like cross paths maybe at some point. I hope they like it. But I mean, I did it out of love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but not yet. But we'll see. There's rumblings.
Yeah. And where is this going to world premiere live? Where are you going to do it?
Roulette in Brooklyn. I'm going to kick off the Palilalia Festival extravaganza. Bill is doing a weekend of showcasing his record label, and so we're gonna do. I'm gonna also be playing in the guitar quartet with him and Wendy Eisenberg and Ava Mendoza, and then so the first night I open that night, and then the quartet closes it out. Yeah,
two very different forms of music. Your brain's gonna be melted.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Bill really. One day he just emailed me and he was like, "Can I send you some music?" That's how my whole thing with him started. I was like, "Sure."
And it was the music for 4 guitars.
It was the music for 4 guitars, and he's like, "Can you transcribe this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's really got me helped me get organized, because he was also the one who was like, "We need to put out a record of your arrangements," because I would like make these arrangements and like put them on YouTube. And that's it, there you go. Here's my John Coltrane song. Here's my, and he was like, let's put out a record,
And I got to ask, just because everyone will wonder, like, have you played it all around with like the software to do this kind of transcription stuff, or it's just, you got to do it manually? You're old school.
I do it manually, but I have a funny story about when I got to like, when I was thoroughly fried from working on this, I like asked ChatGPT if they could transcribe that song Pure, that I was just like, I can't do this song right now. I'm done. I'm so like, I already have more than it's a double album. I'm
Yeah.
done. You know what I mean? So I was like, hey, ChatGPT, do it. And then and so ChatGPT like had this like really excellent like aesthetic description of the music.
Okay.
And then like kind of even like, just break like formally and describing like the elements of it. I was like, cool, can you transcribe it? And it said, no, it's like copywritten material. I was like, okay, cool. And then like, would you like me to do the first 16 bars? And I was like, sure, let's take a look. And it was just like such a joke, I mean, it was absolutely like so wrong that, I mean, it was not even like, it was just not, and I said, that's incorrect. I'm sorry. Like, respectfully, AI, like
Yeah.
it's not,
You don't want it mad at you.
yeah, yeah. And so then I was like going to test it out, and I said, what's the first note of the song, on the bass in the front, which I obviously know what that is, and they said, oh, well, that's easy. It's like the E, which corresponds to the open E string. And I was like, and it's like a B flat. Now, B flat is as far from E as you can get, right? That's a tritone. It's like smack dab in the middle of the chromatic scale. It's not an E. It's. So I was like, oh, actually, it's a B flat. I was like, and then at ChatGPT said, oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. There's just so much going on with like all this, with those like, ambience and this and that, it was hard to pick up. But now that you mention it, you're right. It is a B flat. And so anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, okay. So I haven't really messed with that kind of stuff. I've seen, the other thing is I've seen like people will be like, oh, I did like software transcriptions, and like, I like things to be organized in a certain way. I want to, if it's in 4/4 time, I want to see like 4 groupings, and I want to see, you know what I mean? I don't want to see like a freaking like quarter note on the end of one. Like I want to see like an eighth note tied to an eighth note or a rest. You know what I mean? Like I want to I need like, and so a lot of times, and I don't know, maybe they've gotten better at it, but a lot of times I look at that stuff and I feel like it's not pleasing to the eye in terms of like how we would like deal with the rhythm, and feeling like the central pulse, and I just don't. Yeah. Or I've seen like solo transcriptions that are inharmonically like incorrect, meaning like this is super nerd shit, but that's okay. Right? This is where we are. Right? This is our zone. But like, like for example, I'm working on this Grant Green solo. Actually, a couple of students studying Grant Green solos, but it's like Maiden Voyage, and somebody did a transcription, and I guess they maybe used software, and the pitches in themselves are the right sounding pitch, and the rhythm is correct, but then like it's like a D sharp, like where it should be an E flat, and with respect to the harmony, I'm kind of like bums me out. So I don't know. I just, because I'm trying to explain like, well, it's the flat 7 with the chord. It's not like the freaking sharp 6 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of, but I'm not a snob about any of this stuff. I'm very punk rock, and I very much like, just like total.
I mean, I'm in awe of your ability, and great job, high school dropout. Like this is incredible. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's the love that I didn't get at home, so that's why maybe I'm.
No, I mean, hey, you're raising a family. You got a roof over you. You're doing well, traveling the world.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to ask this, but like having summited your Everest, like, is there another project that you're already kind of like, maybe I'll do this next?
Well, like I mentioned, I think earlier, like I'm starting to like collect tunes for like a follow up to this record where that does deal with like their later catalog.
Yeah.
And then I had been tossing around the idea of doing like a John Coltrane collection. But I'm not sure yet if I'm going to follow through on it. I also, I actually have a singer-songwriter record coming out in like 2027 that I finished like 2.5 years ago, but then I got like really busy with Bill Orca and like the solo stuff, and I just kind of like let it sit. And so, it's good, but it's like, finger picking guitar and like some songs I wrote. And then I have this like vision of like trying to do a record of like original compositions, like that's but like the idea being like polyrhythmic counterpoint, like record, like that I sometimes use like Dungeons and Dragons game dice to like determine like the harmonic and rhythmic like parameters of like like of phrases or whatever, or like to compose with, and then like kind of like hit like, okay, time signature, what are the target pitches and the harmony, and then like create like a sequence, and then like make like these like little counterpoint polyrhythm like studies or something. And I don't know, I kind of want to see if I can follow that to its conclusion. But there's a lot of dreams, and like, and also I have to teach, I have to make money. So my career, maybe this will change soon, but or sometime, like, but I teach a lot of guitar, and so like I can't, like, the amount of sustained concentration it takes to like pull stuff off, gets broken up with other people's, progress and interests musically, which I also love, by the way. So I don't have to, but it does, like, it's hard to like, these things take time. So anyway, but that's what I'm thinking about.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, but I mean, but things take a lot of time, like this thing maybe was brewing for 20 years. Like I started to realize like the trajectory of a lifetime of guitar playing is like, you have to manage trajectories, and some of those trajectories are years long. I did this like John Cage song on a repertoire record called Totem Ancestor that I like wanted to, in the early 2000s. I think, oh, because Kronos Quartet does that song, and I was like, man, that rules. It would be so cool to play it on guitar. And then I guess like around 2018 or 19 or maybe 2020, I did it and like just put it on YouTube or whatever. And then, and then Bill, like I went on Facebook. I was like, does anyone have the piano score for this piece of music? And my friend in Switzerland said, oh, I have, Mark Unternaar sent me. He's like, oh, photos of it. And then I did it. And that was an idea that was like 20 years in, like, that, like, I still like the tune. I still want to do the thing, like, and so it's like I don't know. It's just, if you love music I'm just trying to stay in that headspace, that was like probably going back to the beginning, that headspace of being in the warehouse when you're like 16 years old, and like, just like, like that's the, whatever, you're on the astral plane,
Yeah, I mean, the best things happen when you're either fearless or too naive to know you shouldn't do something, and then you pull it off.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how the warehouse gig was, but obviously you built upon that.
Yeah.
Are most of your students at a pretty high level, or are you teaching a full range of guitar students?
I do a full range. So I teach total beginners and kids and adults. But I also teach people that we're analyzing, like Bach chorales, or like I have a few people that learn like Leo Brouwer etudes and like Franz Cassius pieces, or like country blues stuff, or just rock and roll or whatever, you know what I mean? Or people that are like kind of wanting to know more about harmony and theory and like jazz and whatnot. I have like, Billy Strings is so popular now that like people are getting like wanting to do bluegrass. And so I have these like teenagers that like shred like just so much faster than I can play, like just like, because they're just at home like just shredding with a pick, and so I'm like been doing all these like fiddle tunes with this like 16-year-old kid, and it's like, and it's great because like I love that music too, and it's helping me like improve at it, and like I can, it's like he comes over and it's essentially like now we're almost like kind of peers on like within a specific subset of like music that I'm not like fully focused on, and then we just like play these fiddle tunes, like, and support each other and take solos and transcribe like Tony Rice and stuff, and it's just like, so that's like a great, I mean, we live in a capitalist system, so it's like I have to get paid for this. But that would be like, but if I was just in the village with no, like, and we didn't need money, that would be like what I'd want to be doing anyway, like just like, okay, let's like dive into this stuff. So it's all over the place. And it continually like challenges me and pushes me. And like, I'll teach like fresh arrangements to students too, like that. Like, I'm like, hey, here's this arrangement I'm like working on. Can I, can I teach it to you and we can like bounce it around? And I teach people all over the world, like on Zoom. So I have people specifically that know me and what I do that want to like learn about like arranging or, like doing like kind of what I'm doing in terms of my art part of my career, yeah.
But it might be everything from somebody trying to learn a contemporary classical piece to country blues or bluegrass, or some kid wanting to learn Slipknot.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I love the total beginner though, like someone coming in for the first time. I'm very interested in mechanics and because I do a lot of correcting of mechanics, and I've had to do it for myself, like again, as a self-taught, just like wayward youth, like I didn't I had to like study pedagogy later. I had to like look at classical guitar pedagogy. I will say that I took about 6 lessons over a 3-year period with a guitar player named Freddie Bryant, who was a guru level teacher, which I had never experienced before. And he like changed my playing by like, I was doing some Villalobos A2s at the time. And he went in and was like, you're not hitting the tip of your finger in the exact same place every single time. And I just, like quantifying like spatial physiological things. It's like, was just not something I like had wrapped my head around exactly, and so those lessons, when I was in like my early 30s, really like kind of gave me a lot of tools I had to do remedial work for a few years and then help other people. So when people come over, I can watch the hands, like really like see like are we optimizing the distance from the strings, and like are we relaxing and the angle and all this kind of stuff. And so when I get a total beginner, like no habits have been formed.
Sure.
It's like, and so I get really excited. I'm like, okay, it's like, okay, just sit like this, and it's like, I'm not dogmatic on any position though, because there's not one answer, there's not like one way to hold your pick. Not like some classical pedagogy can be like that for some reason, but if you look at great players, they're not, everyone's a little different. And so, there's like my thumb over the neck. Is it behind the neck? Well, it depends on what you're playing. You know what I mean? Do you want to play Hendrix? Do you want to play Elizabeth Cotton? Your thumb's going to go over the neck. Do you want to like, I don't know, play really fast eighth notes and, like have a huge range? Then we need the thumb behind the neck, and we want to be comfortable in multiple positions. But I don't know, man. Yeah, it's like, it's a good time. I don't know. It's a good way to pass the time.
You still taking on students, or are you pretty full?
I'll fit people in, my daughter has so many activities that my afternoons are like crazy now. So I'm just like,
are you a soccer dad or
something? Yeah. Like she does like, all kinds of things like trapeze, theater, just different stuff, tutors and stuff like, and I'll be out in the car practicing while she's in there for an hour, just kind of, but yeah, I'll take new students for sure. So if anyone wants to hit me up, please do. Because a lot of the times too, like the people who are already playing, it's not a weekly lesson. You know what I mean? I have monthly students. I have like every so often students. Then I have like weekly students. I have a biweekly student. But I'm not like trying to like. I like to keep it fluid. I also don't like. Sometimes like today I had 2 cancellations. And I was just like, hell yeah, it's like, but that's that's going to happen throughout the week, and then it's I love them and want to see them as often as possible, but I'm also like, okay, what am I going to do now? I have
Going back to guitar, you've only got the one Taylor acoustic, and then on the electric side, is it like one guitar as well?
Well, I have an SG that I have, and Taylor though, it's like I think I said it wrong. It's a 214 EG, and then I have a Gibson G that I like a lot, and then I have this like Telecaster Squire Fender that Bill Orcutt gave me when he first hired me to transcribe for him. He's like, I'm going to mail you a guitar because I don't want you to ruin one of your guitars with my tuning, because he plays missing the strings and like uses the E's up to a G. And so he sent me a guitar to like work off of, and then I have this here Cordoba C10 guitar that I like a lot, but I'm not okay. You've probably figured out is that I'm not like a gearhead, and I don't really like. I would have like nicer guitars and more of them and stuff, but it's just I just haven't really made the investment yet. And but I'm dreaming of like maybe getting a new acoustic guitar this coming year, and I'm not sure because like I've certainly like have grown more sensitive over time to like things like resonance and like and then if I play something I'm like ooh, but then it's sometimes people will hand me like this like fancy Martin that's like antique, and I'm like it doesn't play how like the way that my Taylor does, but I mean it just depends, like because it hasn't been set up probably, you know what I mean, or it hasn't. So yeah, I'm pretty minimal in terms of the guitars that I have. Those are my three main guitars though: the Gibson SG, the Cordoba C10, and then that Taylor. Yeah.
You don't have time to go look at new guitars. You're too busy transcribing.
I'm too busy transcribing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but no, I want to branch out. I want to get more. I don't know. I need to play some other guitars. I do. I like a Guild. I have students that come over with these like super nice guitars.
I was going to say that, especially probably the Billy Strings aficionados are bringing over the heavy hitters.
Yeah. People are coming over with some dank axes. I used to have this like student whose dad was a heart surgeon and also a guitarist, and then he had like a super fancy collection when I lived in Asheville, and he would let me borrow guitars like at just however long I wanted, and so I would borrow like his custom Telly or like his Martin or like just different. That was a nice to be able to tap into that. He's like, just take it. It's fine. We'll take it home. But play gigs with it. Take it on tour. He was just like so generous about like let me play him.
Wow. Shane, I mean, this record is amazing. Congratulations. All the things you've done that I've heard have been, completely mind-blowing. So, but this takes the cake. I'll include a link to the Bandcamp to please Bill in the show notes.
Yes. Thank you. Essential.
Time it on a Friday. Clearly,
yeah.
If anybody's going to buy this thing.
This episode must drop on a Bandcamp Friday.
They do drop on Fridays. I don't ever think about Bandcamp Friday though. So. And if you make it through Seattle or we can get you to our Fretboard Summit in Chicago, like love to see you in person. And
I would love to.
Thanks for chatting.
I would love to. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was very fun.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
All right, that was my conversation with Shane Parish. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks as always for tuning into the Fretboard Journal podcast. We've got a new Truth About Vintage Amps podcast dropping in just about 24 hours here. And from the bottom of my heart, it means the world to me that you guys tune in every week to hear me talk to somebody, and I can't thank you